I'm going to be taking apart my first mold that I did with, that's the two-part. So just taking off the clamps. Now I'm pulling off the cottles so that you can kind of see what it looks like inside. Here's a kind of a square with the clay in the middle that was from the my future pour spout. So now I have, gotta get it off of here. It's not uncommon to have it be a little bit hard to lift it off. So now I have my future pour spout right here. You can see the clay bowl in there, but I'm gonna flip it over so I can cast the other side. So this side has the clay that the bowl was resting on, and then inside that is the inside of the bowl. So I need to pour that with plaster. I do have a chisel right here where I'm going to be cleaning up that outside edge a little, getting it ready for pouring the second side. So yeah, this plaster working room has lots of chisels and other items that will help you doing these cleanup activities. So, got that all cleared away. No extra clay. It's just basically my shellacked bisque bowl and my plaster that I poured during the earlier video. So now I want to do a couple things. One thing is that the plaster needs to have a resist. You have to put something in between it and the next pour of plaster. So I'm using the Murphy's oil soap, just rubbing it in to the plaster, and that will make sure that when I pour my second side, I don't get any difficulty separating the two sides of the mold. I'm doing that, but as I'm doing it, I'm noticing that there's a couple spots that I could refine on my mold. And so this is another great use of the chisel. I have a spot right here. I don't know how well you can see it, but rather than having the clay go in at like a 90-degree angle right to the clay, it goes in and then kind of dips. And that is not very good, because that means on the other side the plaster is going to be really thin. So I can go back right here and make sure that I have a good 90-degree meet up on my plaster, from my plaster to my positive, so that my mold will be as good and high functioning as possible. So yeah, I can fix that now in a really easy way. So going back, making just a couple revisions on my plaster and how it meets up with my positive here. This is really easy to do when I have a bisque bowl as my positive. Not so easy if your piece is leather hard clay or anything softer. But for me, with this particular piece, this is a great solution to make sure that my mold is going to function as perfectly as possible. So of course, because I did that, now I got little chunks of plaster everywhere, so I have to wipe that out really carefully. And because I did that, my first layer of Murphy's oil soap might have gotten wiped off a little bit. So I will go back and make sure I have enough. We have Murphy's oil soap here, like not, it's fully concentrated and pretty thick, and I can just wipe it with my hands here. We do also have, if you're looking for like a thinner coat, which sometimes is appropriate, we do also have some Murphy's oil soap in a spray bottle. So it's more dilute, and yeah, so you can tell because the spray bottle has the same sort of yellowish color to it. So I could spray that, and that's diluted with water. Okay, so now I have my mold. I don't think I really need my board anymore, but and I've put resist down. I'm pretty happy with how I think my joints are going to meet up with my plaster, are going to meet with my positive. If I want to be extra careful, and why not? Remember, I have shellac on here, but I'm going to actually put a little Murphy's oil soap all over my bowl to make sure that it comes apart really nicely. I'll leave that there right now to let it soak in, but pretty soon I'll probably want to wipe off any excess. Because if it's really thick on the surface, that will cause you to have issues potentially with your, it might reduce the detail that you get with your plaster when you make your molds. So I've got 3 sides here. I got to make sure that my cottles all meet up nicely. So this edge of the cottle meets up very nicely and flush with the plaster itself. So I'm kind of fiddling around with that a little and now tightening it because I think I have it nice and flush. Okay, so one last side for my mold. Here, and now of course you can't see it. Sometimes these things don't behave well and they want to kind of stretch out and not meet up really well with your plaster. So sometimes you have to, like with this one, I think what I need to do is use another clasp just to hold that in place while I tighten this one, just to make sure that I'm getting a really good grip and that my plaster is very tight with my cottles are tight with my plaster, that is. This one just sucks. I'm gonna trade out for a different one because that one, like I said before, needs some WD-40. So tighten this up right here. And then I'm going to take the one that's just going across the top and tighten it this way so that again I can get make sure my plaster is meeting my cottles as well as possible. What I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure there's no gaps where plaster, when I pour it for the next time, will slip down. Okay. This is so nice and tight that I hardly need any clay in there, but I will grab a little and stick it in the corners so it doesn't leak down the corners. Oop, this one could be tighter. All right, so I'm just shoving some clay in the corners, creating that bead that goes up the cracks. As soon as I do this, I'll probably just show you the inside of this mold and then turn off the video because you've seen me mix and pour plaster before, so there's not going to be anything really new with that detail. So, but I will talk about when you can take your mold apart and take the positive out. So I'll plaster when you go to when you go to mix it, it goes through a couple stages. At first, it's very liquid when you mix it with water. Then, of course, it starts getting thick and it solidifies. And then after that, it will start heating up. And the heating up is another part of the curing process. And while the clay is still heating up, it's not the clay, the plaster is still heating up. It's still pretty soft and not very as strong as it can be. But as soon as the plaster heats up and then cools again, so that once again it feels like it's room temperature, that is all you need to do to know that your plaster is as strong as it possibly can be. And at that point, it's perfectly fine to take off all your cottles and take out your positive. So here's my thrown mold that I made in an earlier video. It was on with the square sides. It's a pretty small little, almost like a little rice bowl. I'm gonna use my chisel just to make sure I don't have any sharp edges. It's kind of like the final steps of cleaning up a mold, is to make sure that it's not gonna be all that easy to chip. And one of the main things you do to avoid that is get rid of the sharp corners. And now, as soon as I do that, I'm ready to take my positive out, but it's pretty hard to get it out. So a couple things I can do is make sure that I don't have any overlap between my plaster that might have run onto my clay right here. I have ever so slightly a little bit, but so I'll clean that up. And then I have to get this out of here. A lot of times going to the compressor and running the air around that edge between the clay and the plaster is all you need to do. I don't know what I'm going to just show you. Like, I sometimes also end up destroying my positive, but to get it out. And I don't have any intentions of redoing this mold or casting it very many times, so I don't really care that I've destroyed my positive. But one advantage of keeping your positive, of course, is that if you cast so many bowls that the plaster starts degrading, you can actually make another one from that same positive. A clay mold, a leather hard clay mold, is not going to be something you're going to be able to reuse. You probably can get your bisque fired clay that I have in here in this mold I was just working on. I should be able to get that out and be able to reuse the bowl if I wanted to make another mold. And most plaster molds are also going to be usable a second time if you want multiple molds, but not leather hard clay. I think that's it. I'm going to pour this mold, the second side of this mold, in a few minutes. I will follow up showing you what some of these molds are like when they're done. And thank you very much.